Councilmember Howard Shook, and Councilmember Andrea Boone. Can we have a motion to adopt the agenda? It's been moved and proper second, moved by Councilmember One, second by Councilmember Shook. Please open the vote.
One moment. The vote is open.
Can we have a motion to adopt the agenda? It's been moved and proper second, moved by Councilmember One, second by Councilmember Shook. Please open the vote. Thank you. Can we have a motion to approve the minutes? It's been moved and proper second, moved by Councilmember One, second by Councilmember Shook. Please open the vote.
The vote is open. The vote is open.
Can we have a motion to adopt the agenda? It's been moved and proper second, moved by Councilmember One, second by Councilmember Shook. Please open the vote. Thank you. Can we have a motion to approve the minutes?
The minutes have been approved.
It's been moved and proper second, moved by Councilmember One, second by Councilmember Shook. Today. Please open the vote. So can we please move to communications?
Yes, Mr. Chair. This takes us to Section F, Communications, item number 125C0040. The communication from Danielle Hampton, Chair Audit Committee, submitting the performance audit report, controls over fuel consumption.
Any questions from so first, thank you, Ms. Hampton. Please proceed.
Good morning, council members. My name is Brandy Bell, and I will be presenting the results of the controls over fuel consumption audit. The team for this audit included Dwayne Braithwaite, Chris Armstead, and myself. We undertook this audit as a follow-up to our 2012 audit that identified patterns of use consistent with fuel theft and an overall control environment inadequate to prevent or detect the misuse of fuel. This audit assessed whether the Office of Fleet Services has strengthened controls to mitigate the likelihood or detect the theft of city fuel. This audit addressed the following specific objective. Has the Office of Fleet Services improved controls to ensure that theft of city fuel can be mitigated or detected? Our review included an analysis of fuel tickets that contain fuel usage and cost data reported in Fuel Focus from January 1st, 2018 through July 16th, 2024. The city also dispenses CNG, which is compressed natural gas, at 2 fuel sites. However, we excluded CNG from our review as the usage is not captured in Fuel Focus because it is not metered. Other audit methods included reviewing City Code and Fleet Services standard operating procedures related to citywide fueling processes and consumption to identify whether they align with best practices, interviewing public works staff to understand how employees are authorized to obtain fuel, analyzing fuel ticket data from Fuel Focus to identify trends in consumption per fuel type and fuel costs incurred by city departments over the audit period, conducting site visits to identify the number of active fuel locations within the city, how fuel is dispensed to employees at the sites, whether access to gas pumps at the sites is properly controlled, and whether the sites are safe and secure. And observing camera footage with public works staff at city fuel sites to identify whether cameras are in good working condition and properly monitor activity at the gas pumps. The Office of Fleet Services within the Department of Public Works is responsible for the acquisition, maintenance, and disposal of the city's motorized equipment fleet. Fleet Services is also responsible for purchasing and dispensing approximately 3 million gallons of fuel annually. The Technical Services Asset Management Division of Fleet Services handles vehicle specifications, vehicle purchases, registration, sales, and fuel management. It is responsible for the ordering and distribution of fuel for all city-owned vehicles and equipment. Fleet Services uses an automated fuel management system called Fuel Focus to track the city's fuel transactions. This is Exhibit 2 on page 3 of the report, which shows Fuel Focus records transactions from 10 fuel sites across the city that dispense unleaded diesel and premium gas. Fuel Focus is a module within Asset Works, which is an enterprise asset management software that Fleet Services uses to manage and track all equipment types within the city. The information contained in the system includes a list of all city vehicles with unique identification numbers, vehicle year, manufacturer, model, and department assignment. Gas cans are also listed in the system with unique assignment information. City employees must be authorized in Asset Works to obtain fuel for city vehicles and equipment. Fuel transactions record the vehicle or gas can information, employee identification number, employee name, and the date, time, location, and quantity of fuel dispensed. There are a total of 54 fuel pumps reported in Fuel Focus, including 25 unleaded, 25 diesel, and 4 premium fuel pumps. 2 of 10 sites are located at the airport. The Clare Drive, Airport 1, Building 4, Northside, and Maddox Park stations have the largest number of fuel pumps, with 8 gas pumps sitting at each station. The correction site is the only station that dispenses premium fuel, and only employees authorized in Fuel Focus with access to premium fuel are allowed to fuel there. This is Exhibit 3 on page 4 of the report, which illustrates the process for authorizing employees to obtain access to the city's gas pumps. After departments purchase vehicles, Fleet Services creates an asset profile in Asset Works and assigns a gas key fob to the vehicle by entering the code on the back of the gas key into the system. This activates the fob for use at the gas pumps and allows employees to obtain fuel. Departments are responsible for providing Fleet Services staff with the names of employees to be authorized to operate city vehicles so that fueling rates can be provided in Asset Works. Fleet Services then assigns rights in Asset Works to the designated employees as fuel operators, who are then able to access fuel at the different city fueling sites. Each employee is to use their employee identification number to access the gas pump, which helps identify who fuels the vehicle in each transaction. While gas key fobs are assigned to vehicles, gas can keys are assigned to employees. Some city departments allow employees to fill gas can canisters with fuel at city fueling locations to power equipment such as mowers, generators, and similar types of equipment. Departments can request a gas can fuel key for their employees by submitting a gas can fuel key request form approved by the department head and an equipment master list to Fleet Services for the office's review and approval. After Fleet Services staff receives the approved form and the equipment list, they set up a profile in Asset Works to assign the gas can key fobs to the designated employee. After the profile has been saved in the system, the user is authorized to obtain fuel to fill gas canisters. This is Exhibit 5 on page 6 of the report that illustrates how fuel transactions are captured in Fuel Focus. Employees obtain gas at the city's fuel sites by using several inputs that ensure fuel transactions are communicated to Fuel Focus. The gas pumps at the fueling site are connected to Fuel Focus through an island control unit, which is a central component at the station. To access fuel for vehicles, users must scan the gas key fob and enter their employee identification number and the vehicle's odometer reading. To fill gas canisters, employees scan the gas can fob and enter their employee identification number. The island control unit validates the data that was entered. If the validation is successful, the unit displays a pump number ready message to indicate that the desired pump is ready to dispense the product. If the data entered do not match requirements, a failed authentication message is displayed and employees are locked out of the system after multiple failed attempts. The employee must contact Fleet Services staff to be given access to fuel. After the data have been successfully validated, the Island Control Unit will activate the gas hose, which will allow the employee to dispense the selected fuel, and the transaction will then be communicated to Fuel Focus. This is Exhibit 8, which is on page 9 of the report. It shows the number of gallons of fuel dispensed, fuel type, and cost by department between fiscal year 2019 and fiscal year 2024. Fuel Focus reported total fuel costs of slightly over $45 million for fiscal years 2019 through fiscal year 2024 for 15.8 million gallons of unleaded diesel and premium fuel dispensed during the period. Fuel usage for gas cans accounted for about 2% of both the amount and cost of fuel over the period. Fuel Focus shows the largest users of fuel over the period were APD, Watershed, and Public Works, respectively. These departments accounted for about 80% of the fuel costs and usage. In our last audit of fuel consumption, we found that Fleet Services had not activated controls in Fuel Focus to limit potential fuel theft or misuse, such as establishing fuel limits and creating reasonableness checks to validate vehicle odometer readings. The system contained multiple instances of users obtaining fuel after entering erroneous odometer readings, and it permitted unlimited attempts to dispense fuel after entering invalid readings. Staff also had not entered vehicle and equipment capacities and asset works to limit employees from obtaining more fuel than needed. In this audit, we confirmed that system controls have since been activated to limit fuel usage and reduce the potential for misuse. Fuel capacity for vehicles and gas cans is recorded in Asset Works, and daily fuel limits have been established for vehicles and equipment based on the department's workday needs. Fleet Services staff also sets limits in the system for the number of consecutive incorrect odometer readings that can be entered before the system inactivates the gas key fobs. Although some system controls have improved, we found that the enhanced system controls do not prevent employee workarounds. We analyzed fuel ticket data transactions and Fuel Focus for fuel dispense from January 1st, 2018 through July 16, 2024, and found employees fuel different vehicles or equipment using the same employee identification number at the same time, or minutes apart at different fueling locations, suggesting that users are sharing identification numbers. This not only impacts record accuracy in Fuel Focus, but it could also mask fuel theft. Some identification numbers for inactive employees remain in Fuel Focus with active fueling status. We found an inactive Public Works employee with fuel transactions assigned to their employee ID as recently as July 15, 2024, although the employee resigned on March 15, 2023. Fleet Services said they rely on departments to inform them of user reassignments or terminations. Fuel transaction data and Fuel Focus are complete. Nearly 22,000 fuel transactions had a blank employee name, and over 6,300 fuel tickets did not have an employee identification number. Unverifiable identification impacts the ability of Fleet Services to determine who obtained fuel and user departments to identify the specific employees for whom it is being billed. It also makes fuel theft or misuse more likely. We identified vehicles with both unleaded gasoline and diesel refuels. Vehicles that use unleaded gasoline should not also use diesel fuel, it is likely that fuel keys are being shared between employees instead of an employee mixing fuel types. Not all employees who obtain fuel with gas can keys are properly authorized. We tested 26 records across 15 unique gas can equipment IDs in 4 departments: aviation, parks and recreation, watershed management, and public works, to identify whether the employee reported in the fuel focus transaction is an authorized assignee in Asset Works. The policy for gas can keys requires departments to submit a request form signed by the department head for fleet services approval. In our review of gas can key transactions, we found that many employees lack the necessary written approvals to obtain fuel. Fleet Services Standard Operating Procedure for gas can keys state that the user department is to submit an official request form signed by the department head to Fleet Services for approval. It also states the department is to submit an equipment listing that identifies all equipment to be fueled with the gas can key. The procedure states that Fleet Services is to review the equipment associated with all gas can keys annually and biannually for usage and assignment. However, Fleet Services staff told us the department is not doing this. We found that not all sites for which Fleet Services purchases gasoline are monitored in the system. The city has 29 locations that dispense fuel to employees. However, we identified 19 sites that lack the necessary equipment to track fuel transactions through the fuel focus system. 4 city-owned golf parks and 15 fire stations do not track fuel transactions due to the absence of the island control units, which are part of the fuel focus infrastructure that captures fuel transactions. Parks and rec staff, fuel equipment used to maintain the golf courses, and the fire stations mainly have diesel pumps, which are used to fuel fire apparatus like engines and ladder trucks. We also found that a consistent process does not exist across the golf courses to report fuel usage to Fleet Services for monitoring. Each of the 4 golf courses we visited had unleaded and diesel fuel tanks. However, there is no consistent recording of fuel usage. We also found that above ground tanks at one of the golf park sites do not have attached meters to measure fuel usage. Fire stations also have no requirements for personnel to log dispensed fuel to provide credentials for obtaining fuel. Unmonitored fuel consumption can allow theft to go undetected. Best practices suggest that government should implement monitoring systems for fuel dispensing, maintain a centralized fuel data record, and track employee, asset, and location information. These are exhibits 10 and 11 shown on page 22 of our audit report. It shows gas tanks at 2 of the city's golf park sites. Exhibit 10 on the left, it has a meter that shows the number of gallons obtained during a transaction, and it also displays the total gallons pumped over the life of the tank. Exhibit 11 on the right shows a diesel and an unleaded tank that do not have meters. We found that Public Works does not have surveillance access to all 29 fuel sites, including 2 airport sites, 4 golf park sites, or 15 fire station sites. These cameras are monitored by the respective departments: Aviation, Parks and Recreation, and Fire and Rescue. Public Works staff also told us that the department does not control the cameras at the 2 fuel sites that are on the watershed management property. We observed 18 of the 29 fuel sites across the city, including the airport and fire stations. We looked at controls surrounding site access, pump operations, site safety and operations, and site security, and noted that some of the fuel sites are either partially secure or not secure. Some sites are located on city property and are staffed by contracted security guards. but we found that some fuel sites do not have security guards present at the entry and exit points to ensure that only authorized employees are allowed on the premises. Also, one site is open to main road traffic, and non-city employees could potentially have access to fuel with the assistance of a city employee. Parks and Recreation staff told us the tanks at each golf park site are locked with a padlock at night, and the power to the tanks at some of the park sites is turned off to prevent unauthorized use. However, during a visit to one of the golf parks, we noticed a padlock sitting on the top of the unleaded gas tank instead of securing the tank. An attendant at a different golf park site explained that the tanks at this location were recently vandalized because there was a break in the fence near the tanks that created an entry point for unauthorized individuals to gain access to fuel. When the attendants at the park's fuel sites were away, we also noted that unauthorized individuals could gain access to the tanks because the gated fence was left open. This is Exhibit 13 on page 26 of the report. We also observed that barriers do not exist at all sites to separate gas pumps from employee parking spaces. At these sites, we found the sites had open areas that provided space for employees to park their personal vehicles near the pumps. This slide shows Exhibits 14 through 16 on pages 28 through 30 of the report. Signage warning employees of certain dangers while fueling was not consistent across the 18 fuel sites we observed. In some cases, the signs were present but need replacing due to weather conditions damaging the signs and making them difficult for employees to read. We also noted that Fleet Services did not ensure all sites warned employees of the consequences of using city-issued gas key fobs for personal use. Also, only one of the sites, which is the airport cargo, we observed has instructional signs posted with fueling procedures. Warning signs posted at fuel sites help protect assets from certain dangers and assist in ensuring employees follow processes consistently. This slide shows Exhibit 18 on page 33 of the report, which illustrates the condition of the gas tanks at a couple of the golf park sites. We noted the condition of the tanks in the surrounding areas to identify any apparent safety concerns. We noticed debris around the tanks at the Chastain Park site, and the tanks at Candler Park are surrounded by overgrown tree limbs, which could be dangerous in the event of potential fuel spills or leaks. We also observed that barriers are not installed around the tanks at the golf park sites to control vehicle placement or protect the tanks, which is an industry standard requirement. Additionally, Fleet Services and Parks and Recreation staff also told us that they have not ensured the gas tanks have been inspected by the state to certify the tanks are free of leaks, corrosion, or any other type of damage. Best practices suggest monthly inspections of storage tanks for leaks, corrosion, and other damage should be conducted. Documentation of inspections should be maintained for 3 years, and deficiencies noted during inspection should be corrected. We also observed that some sites have outdated fire extinguishers and did not have shutoff valves on site to protect them from the dangers of uncontrollable gas leaks. The specific recommendations are listed on pages 35 and 36 of the audit report. We made 17 recommendations to the Public Works Commissioner. The Public Works Commissioner agreed with 16 and partially agreed with 1 recommendation. The 17 recommendations to the Public Works Commissioner should focus on improving record keeping and reducing risks of errors and fuel theft by conducting periodic reviews of employee statuses and assignment changes in fuel focus, monitoring citywide fuel consumption by ensuring processes are in place to track fuel transactions through Fuel Focus, ensuring cameras under the purview of Public Works are installed and working at each fuel site, and providing guidance to departments with fuel tanks to ensure closed caption TV systems are in place, safety measures are implemented, and periodic inspections occur. So this concludes our presentation on the audit we conducted over controls over fuel consumption. We appreciate the courtesy and cooperation of city staff throughout the audit. Thank you for your time. We will be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you. We've been joined by Council Members Ishay Collin and Councilmember Matt Westmoreland. Are there any questions from my colleagues? Okay. Can we hear from the department? Or a response from the department?
Good morning, Melissa Davis, Interim Deputy Commissioner for the Department of Public Works. The department does accept these recommendations, with the exception of one where we did partially agree. That is because we will be working collaboratively with the Department of Human Resources to receive a report on a regular basis regarding employees who have left the city. Any other questions?
Thank you. Questions from my colleagues? Councilmember Ishay Collins.
Got it. So just going by what you just stated, you said you're not accepting the recommendation in terms of HR with employees.
No, ma'am. Just for clarification, we partially accept the recommendation. We will be working collaboratively with the Human Resources Department to ensure that we are made aware of all employees who have left the city so that we can update our records accordingly.
Okay, so you're, just so I'm clear, currently the records that you have don't truly reflect the actual employees that are in the department?
They do reflect the employees that are in the department, but we are updating records, and so there are some inaccuracies because departments have not routinely alerted us when there has been separations from their departments, and so that's why we're working now collaboratively with Human Resources to make sure that we do get the information in a timely fashion.
Thank you. And I think the other question, two questions I have is for the audit, the auditor, the audit. So just clear, the last audit was done 13 years ago. Is there a standard schedule, or should we also consider a standard schedule just with auditing, particularly not only the consumption controls, but just thinking about like any other consumption pieces for departments? I'm just curious why it took over a decade for an updated audit.
Yes, Amanda Noble, City Auditor. We do not have a standard cadence for audits. We do an annual risk assessment and look at how long it's been since we've looked at some areas. And so we realized it had been a long time since we looked at fuel and thought it would be a good audit topic.
Is it something that we should, is it something that we should consider? I don't know if it's a purview of City Council, but is it something that we should consider, particularly when you're talking about like consumables to this nature, to have more of a...
We can consider that, yes.
Okay, and then my next question, I think first off, thank you so much for this presentation. This was extremely informative. I think for me, I just have a little shock value over what the audit entailed, particularly some of the pieces that weren't in place, like the nearly 22,000 fuel transactions that had a blank employee, over 6,300 tickets that didn't have identification, some of the units that doesn't have any control pieces. And so for the audit department, do you guys have like what you think is a projected, based on all of these findings, what is a projected loss or estimated loss to the city in terms of dollar amounts based on these lack of controls?
No, we did not do that as part of our audit objectives. I think a standard industry rule of thumb is poor controls could lead to at least 5% loss.
5% loss of the department, 5% loss based on which part of the budget? Is it projected revenue, annual revenue?
Well, and that's part of the issue why we couldn't project is that a number of the fuel sites are not even in fuel focus. So when we talked about the $45 million of fuel dispense, that was from the units that were in fuel focus and tracked. We don't know how much fuel was dispensed through the other units.
Okay, all right, thank you.
And thank you for those questions as well. If possible, since we did this in-house, if we can do a yearly audit of this. So until we can just catch up, because I know Councilmember Shook, he has a lot of questions and he was here in 2012. So I'm excited about his questions. So thank you, Councilmember Collins. We'll go to Councilmember Shook.
Yeah, and I don't have a lot of questions, actually. I want to thank the audit team for doing performing one of its most valuable functions, which is to go back. Because, you know us, it's the I Love Lucy sketch with the cakes coming off the conveyor belt. And we forget 2012. So if you had known all you had to do is take the 2012 report and stamp 2025 on it, y'all could have saved yourself a lot of work.
To be fair, the Public Works did implement some systems control, and our 2012 audit was primarily a system audit, so they did make some improvements.
I'm not seeing a lot in here that's very life-affirming for me. In fact, I have no choice but to wonder what percentage of this fuel goes to where it's not intended to go.
Right.
It's CIV. Premium fuel. I'm startled by the appetite a lot of the users have for premium fuel. Who decides who has access to premium fuel and who doesn't?
I will defer to
Yeah, that's a department question.
the department.
Councilmember, are you asking who decides what individual? Because
Yeah, or what departments? I'm a little surprised to see how much gas gets pumped in terms of premium fuel. I mean, police, okay, fine, they have high performance engines, et cetera, and so do other cohorts of our rolling stock.
I mean, it's determined by the type of vehicles or units, equipment that the department has.
Okay. I mean, that doesn't jive with the table here. I mean, I don't know. I'm not going to call departments out here by name, but they're not driving Interceptor cars. So, I'll just close with this. I was here 13 years ago, but I'm not going to be here 13 years from now. And it's just so deflating, just on a personal level for me, to see that nothing's changed. Now, you're relatively new, and that's part of the problem. Virtually everyone who comes up to speak to one of these audits just got here. They're an interim acting part-time deputy. And the revolving door just is one reason why we have these recurring, systemic, chronic failures. And that's what this is. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Shook. We'll go to Councilmember Wong.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you for the information in the audit. I have a couple of just questions. The number $45 million over FY19 to FY24, that's what was recorded in terms of, I think you said, that went through the meters, essentially.
That's correct.
What was our our fuel purchases for that same period of time? Wouldn't that give us an idea of what's unaccounted for?
It might. I mean, we don't have the full list of gas purchases.
But we should be able to get it, right?
We should be able to compile them.
I mean, it's basically inventory, so we know what's been accounted for and what's not been accounted for. So if y'all could find that out, I'm just curious as to what that leak is, if it's a significant number or if it's an insignificant number. So
we'd also need an estimate of the fuel currently in the tanks, but we could come up with something.
But at least
we'll work with Public Works to come up with something.
Okay. Yeah, I'm just trying to figure out a back of the envelope way to get to that same point. Then the question, you have the statistic about 22,000 field transactions that had a blank employee name and 6,300 field tickets that did not have an employee ID. What is the number of transactions total? I don't know that I saw that in the data reported.
So the 22,000 is a pretty small percentage. There's a lot of transactions. I'm not sure Brandy knows the number.
I'm just trying to get a sense of scale.
Yeah, right. The 22,000 and the 6,000 are a fairly small percentage. I think it's less than 2%, but I'll get that number.
If y'all can confirm that,
Yes.
that would be great as well. And then I'm trying to understand why we don't have the meter. I for lack of a better word, I can't remember the tech term that you said, but you know, the fact that some of these tanks don't have the technology, why aren't we implementing that? And what is the hurdle to getting those put on those tanks so that we can track it?
Okay, and again, I'll defer to the.
Yeah, that's a part of
Public
the question.
Councilmember Juan, thank you for that question. As Ms. Noble said, yes, there are some tanks that do not have the monitoring systems, and we are in discussions and in communication with the executive office to talk about some funding sources so that we can add that technology to the field tanks.
So it's funding? I mean, is that
Partly. So, you know, this has been going on for some time, and so some things have been discovered. We do have some new leadership in the Department of Public Works and also in Police Services. So we are addressing things as we learn about things. And so, but I can assure you that we are certainly putting together a plan and having discussions with the executive office to be able to resolve these issues.
okay? That's great because budget's coming up, so we can have this conversation again when y'all present. But I think that's why that first piece of data that I asked is really enlightening on this. If our fuel purchases over that same period of time were 3 times what we were tracking, we got a problem. And to me, it's worth the dollars to put these meters in so that we can more accurately track what is being used and by whom. So and how. So if y'all can get those 2 data points back to this committee or all of council, that'd be great. And then let's tee up the conversation when y'all come before us for budget in terms of what we want to do about this. So, all right. Thank y'all. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
I would just like to say really quickly that we do appreciate the auditor's office for this audit. Interestingly enough, Amanda Noble actually hired me. So back in 2006. So I started my career here, my 19-year career working into the auditor's office. So we do appreciate this information, and we are working to make sure we resolve the challenges here.
So you were here in 2012.
I was here in 2012.
Okay, so you.
But I was not. I was not responsible, but I am certainly responsible now. It's on my shoulders.
And the reason why I feel so good about this is because Commissioner Garman and the team have been so effective and efficient. And so that's the change from 2012 to 2025. Commissioner Garman and the team of DPW. I was over last week to see how excited our frontline workers, our essential workers are about working for Commissioner Garman. So we'll go to Councilmember Ishay Collins.
No, thank you. That was going to be my question, Commissioner Davis, in terms of now that now you're in leadership, what are some of, just given the space and opportunity, if you want to share some of the things that you and your leadership is thinking about from these recommendations, because some of them are low hanging fruit and some of them are long term, and don't want you to know this falls on your shoulders now, but also don't want you to assume the full responsibility over the years. So just curious to hear what your thoughts are and the framework of how you're going to lead addressing some of these pieces, because I think it could be underestimated that it's fuel consumption, but at the magnitude of what we're seeing, it really could be in the millions of dollars in loss. And so I just want to give you that space.
No, I appreciate. No, thank you so much, Councilmember Collins. So actually, I did join the Department of Public Works in 2012. So, this will be an exciting time for the department to address these things, and there is an opportunity for me and the leadership team to make sure we get it right. in 2025. Some of the things that we're doing now, we actually have a pilot program where, without mentioning the vendor himself, using telematics on our vehicles to make sure that we can track things in real time and get the information in terms of repairs, in terms of fuel usage. So we are looking for some technologies, and we're actually in a pilot right now, some things that will resolve many of these issues. As you know, or you can imagine, all of these things do come with some level of a price tag. So, but we're excited about the technologies that are available to the city of Atlanta, and also, any fleet facility, because that will mitigate a lot of the issues that we have. One of the things that we are doing is partnering with all of our customers to make sure that we are addressing the things that are in this audit. But I think that for us to really address these challenges with fuel, it's going to require some fuel upgrades. And that's why we have found ourselves in this position today with not necessarily having the monitoring system on some of the tanks. So we're working toward that end. We're collaborating with our business partners, but we also are working very closely with the administration. My pleasure.
I had a few questions that some have been answered, so some will look like statements. Once again, Commissioner Garman and the DPW have been data, AI, geniuses for the past 3 years. With the new data center that's over on Chester right now, where's the new data, in Claire?
It's the Claire Drive at Fleet Services, yes.
And so
Claire.
would that help us assist with watching some of the fuel issues that we're having?
It does. So we actually launched, and I have to just take a moment of personal privilege to just acknowledge the team. They've done great work at Fleet Services under the leadership of Senior Director Timothy Fitzgerald and the team. So very proud of the work that they're doing. But yes, we do have the command center. They are monitoring things in real time. As I mentioned earlier, we do have a pilot with a vendor. So we are using telematics. One of the other things that we're doing is making sure that we are using our data that we have through AssetWorks. We just recently had an upgrade last year. There's still some work that needs to be done. Again, this is a new leadership team, so certainly there's some challenges with the data. I'll certainly be transparent about that, but we are working to make sure that we improve that information and have the most accurate data so we can charge back appropriately to our customers.
And when you say new leadership team, it's seamless transition because some of the same people are in the building the past 3-4 years, same people, same leaders. Commissioner Garman was here when Commissioner Wiggins was there. So I'm seeing a lot of the same seamless because I remember we opened up the first command center upstairs, and now we're opening up a second command center at Claire. And I come out of the data world, so I saw the group of young folk in there with 3 computer screens in front of them, monitoring stuff. So this is brand new. This last 3 years, these 2 command centers are brand new, and this is changing how we're monitoring stuff, right?
Yes, absolutely. Because the command center at Fleet Services is actually less than a year old. And so we're still gathering data, but again, we're working through the data with AssetWorks, which is our system of record, as well as the data we're getting through our pilot with the telematics software.
And I was thinking a little bit deeper when we was talking about the misuse of gas, and I was thinking about the people. So do we have a group of a demographic for people who may be doing this? Because just thinking about reasons or ways we can stop and fix this. I know Councilmember Boone and I talked about giving gas cards to employees. I know we talked about the Democratic Party. Well, progressives across America are talking about pay on demand because they know a lot of essential workers and frontline workers are going through different things at home. So I would like to know if we can try to see what is actually going on, get a more complete story before we just go to HR and just start firing folks. Get a more complete story about what's going on if possible.
Okay, so thank you so much for that. So when I mentioned HR, it's not a matter of us, asking that someone's fired. What we're trying to do is make sure that we have the most accurate, up-to-date information from HR when team members or employees separate from their respective departments, so that Fleet Services can update its records and make sure that we take them out of our system so that they no longer have access to the fueling stations.
Okay, thank you. And I think my last question was around the premium tanks. Is there a reason that the premium tanks is only at This is on page 4 at the Corrections Fuel Century.
Is there a reason that it's only at the corrections facility? I'll have to.
It would seem that way on page 4 of the audit. If you have a graph here that talks about certain things. So if you can look at it if possible. And that way you can, or if the auditing team can, because I'm just thinking about ways in which we can spread the equity in the city. We may need more.
For more premium tanks?
Yeah, we may need them. I'm looking at the Claire Drive. I know how many people actually use it in the airport, where we may need a premium tank. So as we're looking at our infrastructure and growth, it's making sure that the south side and Claire Drive, because I wouldn't want folks driving all the way to different spaces to get this. So
No, understood, sir. No, thank you for that. And we are working with the administration now on, I think what we're calling a public works or a fleet services campus. And so we're having those discussions right now about where new facilities or new infrastructure needs to be placed. So this is a very timely conversation, timely audit. So we will certainly look into that.
we like you on Claire Drive. We don't want you to leave Claire Drive. District 12 likes you. Thank you again. Any more questions from my colleagues? Sure.
So speaking of real-time data, my auditors confirmed that we reviewed about 1 million transactions.
Motion to file by Councilmember Shook, second by Councilmember Wan. Please open the vote.
Mr. Chair, friendly point of instruction. This motion should be to accept and file.
Motion to accept and file by Councilmember Shook, second by Councilmember Wan. Please open the vote.
The vote is open. The vote is closed. 6 yeas, 0 nays. This item is accepted and filed. This takes us to our consent agenda, section G, ordinance for first reading. Item number 2, 2050-1136, an ordinance by City Utilities Committee authorizing the Chief Financial Officer to amend the FY 2025 Water and Wastewater Renewal and Extension Fund budget in amount of $4,200,000.00 to transfer funds from watershed reserves for appropriations and add funds to the annual plant maintenance project and for other purposes. Item number 3, 2050-1137, an ordinance by City Utilities Committee waiving Part 2, Chapter 2, Article 10, Division 4 of the Atlanta City Code to authorize the mayor or his designee to execute the Third Amendment to emergency contract for major electrical repairs and services with Lakeshore Engineering LLC on behalf of the Department of Watershed Management to extend the term of the agreement for a period not to exceed 9 months, retroactively effective from January 11, 2025 through October 10, 2025 for time only, authorizing the mayor or his designee to ratify services rendered in connection with the agreement beginning January 11, 2025 through the execution of the Third Amendment and for other purposes. Takes us to our regular agenda, section H, ordinance for second reading. Mr. Chair, this item requires a substitute. The substitute changes the caption. Do we have a motion to bring forth a substitute?
It's moving properly second, moved by Councilmember Westmoreland, second by Councilmember Wan. Please open the vote.
The vote is open. Will everyone please vote? The vote is closed. 6 yeas, 0 nays. The substitute before you. The substitute increases the funding amount to $1,635,000.00. Item number 4, 2050-1112, substitute ordinance by City Utilities Committee, an ordinance waiving Part 2, Chapter 2, Article 10, Division 4 of the Atlanta City Code to ratify services rendered in connection with the agreement listed herein, annual contract for painting and pressure washing services with A&D Painting Incorporated, and to authorize the mayor as designee to execute the Fourth Amendment to the agreement on behalf of the Departments of Watershed Management, Enterprise and Asset Management, and Parks and Recreation to extend the term of the agreement for a period of 9 months, retroactively effective beginning February 13, 2025 through November 12, 2025, an amount not to exceed $1,635,000.00. All contractor work will be charged to and paid from the fund, department, organization, and account number listed herein and for other purposes.
Moving and properly second, moved by Councilmember Wan, second by Councilmember Shook. Please open the vote.
The vote is open. Will everyone please vote? The vote is closed. 6 yeas, 0 nays. This item is favorable on substitute. Item number 5, 25-01113, an ordinance by City Utilities Committee waiving Part 2, Chapter 2, Article 10, Division 4 of the Atlanta City Code of Ordinances to ratify services rendered in connection with agreement listed herein, Entrenchment Creek WRC decommissioning and South River WRC primary clarifiers replacement with PC Lewis, a joint venture beginning October 1st, 2024 through the execution of the fourth change order to authorize the mayor as designee to execute the fourth change order to the agreement on behalf of the Department of Watershed Management for an additional 188 days for final completion due to unforeseen repairs needed to complete the project, retroactively effective from October 1st, 2024 to April 8th, 2025, an amount not to exceed $3,754,184.00. All contracted work will be charged to and paid from the fund department, organization, and account number listed herein and for the purposes. Mr. Chair, the department requested that this item be held.
So move. It's been moved properly second moved by myself, second by Councilmember Juan. Please open the vote.
The vote is open. Will everyone please vote? The vote is closed. 6 yeas, 0 nays. This item is held in committee. Item number 6, 25-01114. An ordinance by City Utilities Committee authorizing the mayor as designee to execute the First Amendment to Special Procurement Agreement listed herein, temporary supplemental labor with First Step Staffing Incorporated, an amount not to exceed $625,000.00 on behalf of the Department of Public Works, and to execute the Second Amendment to Special Procurement Agreement listed herein for temporary supplemental labor with Center for Employment Opportunities Incorporated, an amount not to exceed $500,000.00 on behalf of the City of Atlanta Department of Public Works and the Department of Parks and Recreation for the purpose of adding funding in a total amount not to exceed $1,125,000.00. All contracted work will be charged to and paid from the accounts listed herein to waive Article 10, Chapter 2, Division 4 of the Procurement and Real Estate Code of the City of Atlanta Code of Ordinances and to add additional temporary staffing and for other purposes.
So move. Moved and properly second. Moved by myself, second by Councilmember Juan. Please open the vote.
The vote is open. The vote is closed. 6 yeas, 0 nays. This item is favorable. This takes us to Section I, Resolutions. Item number 725R3269, a resolution by City Utilities Committee authorizing the mayor or his designee to execute the First Amendment to a Memorandum of Understanding and Contract Item Agreement with the State of Georgia Department of Transportation on behalf of the Department of Watershed Management to add funding for additional construction services related to the milling and resurfacing project along State Route 154 from the Fulton County line to State Route 10 in DeKalb County, an amount not to exceed $134,830.20. All contracted work will be charged to and paid from the fund department, organization, and account numbers listed herein and for other purposes.
Councilmember Juan, we have one question for the department. Anyone from the department here to respond?
Good morning. Good morning, Council. My name is Cedric McKitt. I'm the interim deputy commissioner of the operation of the Office of Linear Infrastructure, OLIO, and Department of Watershed Management. Some questions?
Well, specifically, I mean, I'm looking at the evolution of this work, and there have been a number of amendments over time. And I'm curious as to if we just keep getting surprised by things or if this was originally within the budget. So if you could just walk us through the timeline on this and what is creating all these amendments in this one as well.
Okay, sure. Initially, the first point here that we had was this is for the Department of Transportation and sponsoring the resurfacing M006524 SR154 from Fulton County line to SR10 in DeKalb County.
No, wrong paper. It's the next paper. It's the hemp. We're on the Hemp Hill plant paper, right? We're on 25R3270.
Oh, okay. No, this is wrong.
Or are we?
I'm sorry.
Okay.
I thought we were on the resolution.
Okay, I stand corrected. I'm sorry. I thought we were on 3270. Okay, my bad. Sorry.
Okay, no worries.
Move approval. We actually have a question from the department on 6-9 from Councilmember Shook.
Yeah, so it's unusual to have to come back and ask for more money to cover unforeseen problems. Usually these are kind of off the rack MOUs and apparently pretty easily budgeted. I'm just wondering why this one's different. Anybody?
And this is the 3269, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, so on this one, the addition is for adjusting water valves and the manholes for the milling and paving of GDOT along SR 154.
Okay, but it was originally, I guess, under budgeted in terms of the amount of work you actually now know you have to do, right?
Yes, sir. It would seem that, yes, sir, it was.
And I'm just simply saying that I can't remember an MOU to do this kind of work having to come back because something was amiss or there was some kind of oversight. So I'm hoping you can shed light on who missed what. I mean, was the estimate put together in-house or by a consultant, or did you accept information from GDOT? What?
Yes, so the actual work itself it's a GDOT project. Our team did estimate the amount of appurtenances that needed to be milled and paved. We did give them that information. The additional items to be milled and paved are those valves, which came up to like about 80 of them, and water valves and 60 manholes to be added.
Okay. So then am I right that to a certain extent, part of this problem is caused by our imperfect understanding of how many water valves we have and where they're located?
Councilman Shook, I wouldn't say that I wouldn't say that I'm aware. If that's the case, sometimes we have valves that are covered and appurtenances that are covered also.
Right.
So when we get out and we start to do an initial investigation, you might have those valves, you might have those appurtenances that are already covered. Once we get to the secondary phase, before we start construction, we go back out again, do another assessment, and from that assessment, we can find those initial locations that we missed.
The reason my mind jumped to that is because, over the last couple of months, there have been several, water main breaks where we've had problems locating the valves.
Yes, sir.
And it's been publicly acknowledged that, over the years, the record keeping has been imprecise and we're not sure where they are. And it's going to take a pretty large effort, to find that out. Commissioner, how are you? And then you raise another interesting question, which is the extent to which they get paved over. Now, to me, that's a project management issue. I mean, I don't know why we would sign off on a project where someone should be able
transportation project. So we don't always have complete control over resurfacing activities, especially when our valves are being covered. So we will find valves from time to time, but internally, our new process is to coordinate with the Atlanta Department of Transportation before resurfacing activities begin to make sure that we have an accurate inventory of the valves that are in place, When milling activities occur, we will go back to do an assessment to see if we have uncovered valves that have been buried or covered. And after the resurfacing work has been completed, we'll go back to make sure that the valves that were discovered during the milling process and before their process began are still exposed. In this particular instance, again, it's very difficult anytime that we're doing work on a state right-of-way. And oftentimes, these projects involve areas that are outside of the jurisdictional boundaries of the city of Atlanta for some of the southern tier cities that we serve. But I want you to rest assured that this is not an indication that the asset management system that we have in place, that it doesn't have an accurate inventory of all of the valves that we currently have in place. We will find valves from time to time that have been covered, but this is not a result of us not knowing where our valves are.
All right. Well, Commissioner, thank you for your candor. Thank you for the work that you've done in your role as commissioner of this department, and good luck with your new posting.
Thank you, sir.
So this is a contract. We have to honor it. I'll move approval.
It's been moved and properly second, moved by Councilmember Shook, second by Councilmember Westmoreland. Please open the vote. The vote is open. And Commissioner, while we have you, Hutchins Road, the flooding on Hutchins Road, if you all can give me any kind of background information that we have from the Army Corps of Engineers, from the history of it, if you can send that to me, please. Do Hutchins Road flooding, South Atlanta flooding.
Will do. I believe that from our last discussion, the team has prepared a response, and it should be over to you shortly.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
The vote is closed. 6 yeas, 0 nays. This item is favorable. Item number 8, 25R3270, a resolution by City Utilities Committee authorizing the mayor or his designee to execute the Fifth Amendment to agreement listed herein, water distribution system rehabilitation and improvement upgrades at Hempville Pump Station with Rockdale Pipeline Incorporated, Integral Municipal Services Corporation, joint venture on behalf of the Department of Watershed Management to add funding in amount not to exceed $500,200.00. All contract work will be charged to and paid from the fund, department, organization, and account number listed herein and for other purposes.
Any questions from my colleagues? Councilmember Wong.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So yeah, my questions from previous applied to this one is just understanding the evolution of this project and why we've seen so many amendments, including this one.
Good morning, Chairman Lewis, members of the council. This is, there again, an amendment to increase the dollar amount. It relates to the small meter installs. If you recall, last year we got a little bit behind the request. So we brought in some additional contractors to assist that, to get caught up. And one of those contractors was Rockdale. So the initial amendments did not include the work that was done by Rockdale last summer as it related to the meter installations.
All right, so why does the caption talk about the contract includes the meters as well as the Hemp Hill project?
Right.
This is not related to the Hemp Hill project.
No, sir.
This is simply adding, okay, that's helpful.
It caught me too, so I want to clarify that. If you notice, it also includes water distribution system upgrades and rehabs, and that's where the water meters come in.
Okay, I'm sorry, I thought all the work was at Hemp Hill. I didn't realize it was kind of a dual purpose contract. So thank you. I'll move approval.
Yep.
It's been moved and properly second. Please open the vote. Moved by Councilmember Wong, second by Councilmember Shook.
The vote is open. The vote is closed. 6 yeas, 0 nays. This item is favorable. Item number 9, 25R3211, a resolution by Councilmember Michael Julian Bond authorizing the mayor or his designee to execute an agreement to accept an in-kind donation of services from the Georgia Power Company on behalf of the Mayor's Office of Sustainability and Resilience and the Department of Enterprise and Assets Management, an amount not to exceed $134,000.00 to conduct innovative energy auditing and assessments for large city-owned buildings and for other purposes.
It's been moved and properly second. Moved by Councilmember Vaughn, second by Councilmember Boone. Please open the vote.
The vote is open. Will everyone please vote? The vote is closed. 6 yeas, 0 nays. The item is favorable. Item number 1025R 3221, a resolution by Councilmember Andrea L. Boone authorizing the mayor or his designee to execute an agreement for operations and maintenance services for Atlanta Fulton County Water Treatment Facility owned jointly between the City of Atlanta and Fulton County for Veolia Water CAFRA Operations Services LLC, a joint venture on behalf of the Department of Watershed Management for a term of 10 years with one 10-year renewal option, an amount not to exceed $24,133,542.64. All contracted work will be charged to and paid from the fund department organization and account number listed herein and for other purposes.
Anything from my colleagues?
Mr. Chair, we were just curious as to, is there not an iPro with this because it's of the contracting, the JV, but the joint contracting side of things?
Good morning. I'm Quentin Fletcher, Deputy Commissioner for the Office of Water Treatment and Reclamation. Councilmember Vaughn, you're correct. This is a joint procurement with the Atlanta Fulton Water Resource Commission.
It's been moved by Councilmember Juan, second by Councilmember Shook. Please open the vote.
The vote is open. The vote is closed. 6 yeas, 0 nays. The item is favorable. Mr. Chair, that concludes our legislative agenda for this morning.
Thank you again, Mr. Johnson. Thank you, our colleagues. Meeting adjourned.